Whispers of gasoline floated through the smoky haze, cutting sharp and acrid. Flames slithered over the rotting wood beams like vipers converging for a kill. Bianca stood frozen at the edge of the inferno, her silhouette a stark contrast against a wall of blinding orange and black. Who would have thought her quiet life would come ablaze like this? Only hours earlier, she had been nothing more than the overlooked barista at the Alchemist's Brew, a bustling cafe hidden in the weave of Sicily's narrow alleys. Bianca's mornings were a ritual of steam and espresso, her hands deftly crafting the perfect crema on a cappuccino, an art few appreciated until they glanced up at her, only to look past as if she was part of the scenery. Small and plain, with a penchant for oversized sweaters and long, concealing skirts, Bianca was the kind of woman people walked around, never towards. The cafe was her sanctuary, its crammed warmth offering solace in caffeinated sips. The scent of roasted beans and the gentle clatter of cups spoke a familiar language to her senses, a symphony uninterrupted by expectations or demands. Yet here she was, thrust into the heart of danger, drawn not by heroics, but an instinct she didn't know lurked within her. It had started with a scream, distant yet piercing, shredding the evening's quietude. Bianca's spine had stiffened at the sound, every fiber alert. Without a conscious thought, she found herself charging into the jaws of the blaze where strangers would balk. The fire's heat pressed on her like a physical force, prickling her skin and drying her throat as she navigated around the burning rubble. Then she saw him, Luca Romano, infamous Mafia boss, bloodied and unconscious beneath a fallen beam. The whole of Sicily spoke of Luca in hushed tones, tales of his ruthlessness written in the hearts of those who dared to cross him. Bianca's own uncle had once warned her never to seek out his world, and yet, with soot streaking across her face, she wrecked the rules of her small existence, rushing towards the danger from which most would flee. Her fingers found the beam alarmingly warm, scalding as she gripped at it, adrenaline nullifying the pain. As she mustered strength beyond her lean frame's appearance, the beam shifted, and with a gasping collapse, she freed him. "Don't go under again," she commanded, surprised at the clarity in her voice as she knelt by his side, checking his pulse, feeling the rhythm of life still tethered to him. Outside, a cacophony grew. Sirens approached, unwelcome intrusions disturbing the heavy silence the fire had enforced. As the first responders swept in, Bianca remained unnoticed, a shadow that moved between them until Luca was safely in the arms of medics. Weeks passed without mention of her deed. At the Alchemist's Brew, life dripped by in caffeinated increments, unchanging to any observer. Yet beneath Bianca's calm exterior surged a torrent of thoughts, replays of that night flickering in and out of focus, like a film on a damaged reel. It was then, while poring over an espresso order one late afternoon, that the door chimed. The low silhouette that filled the doorway was at first a shadow against the lowering sun. As he stepped inside, the air dipped with a sudden chill that had nothing to do with the weather. "Luca Romano," she registered, her eyes wide even as she busied her hands reflexively. He crossed the threshold with the imposing grace of a lion, hushed conversations tailing off at his presence. Wrapped in a tailored suit that accentuated every line of his sharp charisma, Luca appeared untouched by the scars Bianca knew must have been there. "You're Bianca," he stated, his voice a velvet-lined trap. No question, just certainty. He knew her name without a doubt of its ownership. Yet such was his power that he did not need to speak more than a syllable to make a point. "Yes, sir," she replied, her voice steady, though her heart thrummed wildly against her ribcage. He stepped closer, his gaze a tangible force holding her to the spot. She felt exposed, all her mundane anonymity stripped away in the spotlight of his interest. "I owe you my life," he continued, the quirk of a smile at odds with the intensity of his stare, "and I do not forget my debts." Bianca's throat tightened, the weight of his words blazing more furiously than the fire had. "Is there anything you need?" Luca asked, the offer laced with an undercurrent of inevitability. Her first instinct was to back away, to retreat into the safety of simplicity she had always known. But the defiance of her choice that night still crackled within her, urging her not to fade again into the shadows. "Just to keep doing what I do," Bianca said finally, motioning towards the counter behind her. Yet beneath her calm facade, an ember sparked, hinting at a destiny unfurling beyond her control. Lucas smiled, a gesture that transmuted his otherwise forbidding mien into something remarkably human. "Let's see about that," he murmured, slipping a card onto the counter, its gleaming surface marked only with a number. "Call when you're ready." His eyes lingered a moment longer, searching hers as though measuring the depths yet unspoken. The cafe door swung shut on silent hinges, the finality of his departure leaving a swirl of expectations. Bianca glanced at the card, her world now divided into the hours before the fire and those after. Each tick of the clock seemed a step toward inevitable change, drawing her towards a world she had only witnessed from afar. She tucked the card into her pocket, her mind whirling with silent conversations of what such a call might demand. As the shadows lengthened, her future seemed shaped by uncertainties more perilous than any burning flame. Only one thought crystallized clearly in her mind: whether like a moth to fire, she would find herself drawn inexorably to the light Luca Romano cast. And so, beneath the quiet withdrawal that habitually cloaked her, a decision brewed, promising upheaval hidden in its simplicity. She knew that before long, every corner of her life would be tested. With trembling hands, she locked up the alchemist's brew for the night, the click of the lock echoing loudly. Throwing one last glance over her shoulder, she stepped into the narrow alleyway, where the distant peal of church bells mingled with the early evening's twilight. Before her, a shadow distinct, unwavering, stretched like a path into the unknown. "I wonder," she whispered into the dusk, a question carried on the breeze. She couldn't help but think that Luca Romano's world, filled with risks far greater than errant flames, lay just a heartbeat away from becoming her own. Not if, but when, the darkness grew teeth. As Bianca awoke, the world seemed to have shifted a shade darker, murmurs of the previous night swirling like the morning fog entwined in the Sicily air. The taste of last night's espresso still clung to her tongue, bittersweet and enduring, mirroring the procession of events that claimed her dialogue with Luca Romano. A smudge of uncertainty trailed her thoughts as she dressed for the day, her oversized sweater now feeling like armor, the threads whispering promises of normalcy that her new reality would likely betray. The alchemist's brew bore the weary familiarity of a second home, its scent of roasted beans a welcomed embrace she had come to rely upon. Yet Bianca's solace remained precarious, perched on the edge of the stark contrast with Luca's world, a realm laden with shadows her quiet existence failed to comprehend. Bianca noticed small changes first, the weight of conversation skewed by hushed tones when she entered the room, her name now whispered with an unfamiliar inflection that ruffled her composure. Luca's words left an unspoken promise of change that unsettled her heart, the card now a constant specter against her hip, where a pocket contained both its possibilities and its chains. Her morning shed innocence as small nods and attentive gazes replaced the once dismissive encounters with regulars. Bianca found herself under scrutiny, a prelude she had neither expected nor desired. The usual noises of the cafe receded into the background, replaced by an internal monologue fraught with queries she dared not voice. "Looks like some people have noticed you," Maria remarked playfully, a colleague's smile edged with both envy and curiosity. Bianca maintained a composed exterior, her hands deft at stealing the frothing milk, though her heart danced tentatively under the influence of unanticipated acknowledgement. But admiration was a fragile veneer, concealing the undercurrent of tension that wound through her interactions with others. Simple gestures now bore unfamiliar weight, each eye that settled on her no longer indifferent but watchful, calculating. Bianca realized Luca's presence, even in silence, had remolded the landscape of her existence, and she navigated it with tentative steps, reminiscent of the evenings blending into uncertain nights. As she moved through her day, weaving drinks and extending smiles tinged with anxiety, the anticipation of an unspecified reckoning simmered beneath the facade of normality. This quiet, brewing tension was punctuated by a series of unbidden visions, a life that had always been hers spiraling achingly toward a precipice she couldn't yet see. The crescendo arrived unexpectedly on a bright afternoon as translucent rays wove golden patterns over the cafe's polished surfaces. Luca reemerged, this time not as a shadow in the doorway, but as a presence tangible and gravitating, casting the everyday noise of the alchemist's brew into quiet relief. He bore no entourage, his solo arrival marking significance that rippled through the patrons like seismic activity. With a pause that drew every eye, Luca's gaze latched onto Bianca's, a patient predator leaving no room for misinterpretation. Coffee, he instructed gently but firmly, his voice entwining with the aromatic atmosphere, laced with unspoken narratives. Bianca nodded, the air thin around her as she performed her craft, believing wrongly that such routines siphoned away the tension permeating her hands. Each movement was deliberate, as if the universe hinged on her execution of this single orderon she knew felt monumental, although she couldn't yet articulate why. As Lucas settled into his chosen corner, the hustle resumed, conversations bubbling with repressed fervor. Bianca, under the veil of industry, sensed the crescendo demanding culmination. Her internal compass spun wildly by proximity to a world dictated by men like Luca Romano. Soon, though, her last trembling gesture placed the cup in front of him, an offering to what felt like a deity scrutinizing a mere mortal. At that instant, the shadow shifted. "Sit with me," Luca requested, though it brooked no denial. Caught by undertow, tugged outside of choice, Bianca obliged. She was hyper-aware of the many eyes now tracing every gesture of theirs, the tension between perception and reality, electric and tangible. "Why haven't you, Ob?" Luca queried, the inquiry balancing casually between interest and expectation. "Didn't seem necessary," Bianca confessed softly, making fully aware it was beyond necessity now. It bordered on survival. Luca's laughter creased the space between them, a surprising warmth that momentarily softened his forbidding exterior. "Life takes unpredictable paths, Bianca. Sometimes we need only observe the scenery before the real journey begins." Bianca absorbed the wisdom behind the sentiment, understanding, despite herself, that some alliances, no matter how improbable, carried profound consequences. Her silence spoke volumes she hadn't intended to produce. Luca muffled a knowing smile, sipping the coffee with an expression reminiscent of tasting destiny itself. The environment vibrated around them, his calm demeanor contrasting with the anxiety thrumming through her veins. But somewhere within the juxtaposed moment lived an enigmatic truth she had yet to explore, perhaps a symbol essential to bear, rather than ignore. Suddenly, a commotion disturbed the ambiance, as an object clattered onto the floor. A token from Luca's pocket-tan antique silver lighter skated across the tiles, stopping short of Bianca's chair, engraving itself upon another chapter of her life story. All eyes shifted to Luca, whose expression remained impassive. Not a celebration, nor remorse, but a heartbeat later, it flickered to Bianca with intent clarity. "Just if," Luca started to quip but was interrupted by a chilling ringtone. Recognition danced across Bianca's face as she pressed her lips tightly, only seconds passing before she dared extend a lingering whisper into the uncertain ether between them. "Now or never?" she questioned, the ambiguity hovering in the air. And with that, the curtain began to draw, signaling a new act yet conceived, but palpable in its unspoken promise. Revelation. "Marry me," Luca said, the suggestion hovering in the air like gunpowder. Bianca blinked, the words striking her senses with the same visceral quickness as the fire that had ignited this unforeseen entanglement. The cafe buzzed around her, the usual clinks of porcelain and patron whispers now muted in her ears, overtaken by an internal roar. Bianca Rossi had always thought of herself as simple, her life filled with the solaces of routine and anonymity. Her days began with the hiss of steaming milk and ended with the crisp click of locks at closing, her world stitched together by tiny, unremarkable details. Even in her oversized sweaters or the way she pulled her hair into an inconspicuous bun, Bianca spoke with a language of invisibility, a testament to how well she blended into the backdrop of life. But now, a single proposition threatened to rip apart the quilt of security she'd so carefully pieced together. "What?" Her voice, barely a breath, managed to escape with disbelief clinging to it. He leaned back in his seat, a remote calmness painting his features as he surveyed her shocked composure. "A public gesture," he explained, as if the nature of his request was a simple business transaction. To quell the questions, to refocus prying eyes, an arrangement of sorts. Bianca's heart thumped wildly in her chest as though struggling to escape the confines of reason. Her mind replayed the words as she tried to anchor herself to any semblance of sanity amidst the absurdity. An arrangement to what end? Luca's gaze was steady, unfaltering, as if certainty itself had assumed human form. To both shield you and to protect me. A subtle move for appearances, a chance to reset perceptions. His words were as strategic as the man himself, deliberate like tiles in a game of chess. The notion itself was foreign, a pledge belonging to worlds spun of fantasy and power-laden stories. Yet here it lay at her feet, stark and real. Every fairy tale she'd ever known had mentioned nothing of such alliances. But neither had she anticipated that she would be rescuing a mafia boss or altering the course of her life with a single brave act. A wooden stir snapped between her fingers, the sound small yet profound, an unintentional symbol of fate's intrusion. Is this a jest? The question slipped out before she could stifle it, and she regretted it almost instantly. Not at all, Luca affirmed, voice rumbling like distant thunder. And if I refuse, she asked, searching his expression for any hint of coercion beyond his calculated reasoning. Luca's smile was a specter of darkness dancing on the edge of light. You wouldn't be here, he replied, if the deep part of you didn't already seek something different. His statement was an embroidered truth, woven delicately yet firmly. Bianca's reality teetered on the brink of contradiction and resolve. Amidst the vibrant espresso aroma, she battled the sensibility of safety versus the allure of undefined camaraderie. The constraints of her earlier identity buckled under the weight of a life unfurling unstably before her. Courage was not foreign to Bianca, though. It had simmered beneath her quiet countenance, manifesting that night amidst the flames. Still, herein lied a challenge, one that evaporated comfortable anonymity to expose a chance at something entirely distinct. An internal clamor resonated with the dusk settling over the Sicilian streets outside. Rationality petitioned for acceptance. Curiosity argued against caution. Silence, however, owed itself solely to Bianca. In a moment that skewed reality toward nerve endings and impulse, Bianca nodded. If only, she added, voice soft but certain, to see what this change holds. Luca seemed to sigh contentment, the motion seamless as if he had already known her decision. Then allow me to show you, he pledged, his assurance weaving unspoken contracts with her acceptance. The cafe door swung open with a lithe breeze, a parallel act of nature mirroring the phase of life Bianca had entered. Bianca and Luca, both occupants of a transformed haven, exited through its threshold together. Night coated the Sicilian streets in a serene hue as they walked side by side, the distance between worlds now a footpath alongside cobblestones. The soft rustle of leaves whispered overhead, capturing notes of eerie sonance that Bianca's ears attuned themselves to amidst the shifting shadows. Everything will change, Luca mentioned, his voice a mellow chord in the evening symphony. For better or for worse, Bianca wondered aloud, curiosity tumbling free, unchained by the night's anonymity. Luca chuckled quietly, a sound reminiscent of silk whispering across stone. Only we can decide, he stated enigmatically, the crest of his words wavering on the promise of days yet to unfold. Bianca felt that these brief exchanges were woven with a timelessness that required trust. Each pause laden with complexities, each word bearing the weight of choices converging under moonlit guidance. Footsteps softened as they approached a lamppost, its light casting an illusion of protection and a false sense of certainty upon the unknown future it illuminated. Yet Luca stopped, breaking the comfortable stride they had unwittingly fallen into. Bianca watched as his eyes drifted momentarily to an unseen memory before returning to her, resolved. There are signs we must unravel, he admitted, his truth a tether reaching between them. And with this new journey, Bianca proposed boldly, we learn together. Their pact, as ephemeral yet grounded as the esplanade they had followed, lingered a testament to solidarity forged in uncertainty. And then she saw Ita mark upon his wrist, just visible above his cuff, a half-veiled symbol etched in muted scars. Bianca managed to catch the briefest image before Luca quietly tugged the sleeve down, the action measured, unfolding mysteries still embraced by shadows. Indeed, he finally declared, his voice settling like dew, just the beginning. As they continued forward, the evening's embrace fused their paths, knotted with unspoken compacts. Bianca watched the half-hidden scar remain a lurking testament of unforeseen narratives. Their silhouettes disappeared down the alley, shrouded in uncertainty, yet drawn by a shared intrigue. Only the moon witnessed the quiet dance of shadows, which enacted a tale woven in secret promises and bold, whispered lines. An eerily harmonious cry pierced the evening sky. Luca and Bianca turned in unison, drawn by the discordant melody that pricked through the air, only to find a hawk circling the dimming canopy above, its wings a shadowy symphony of silent strength and sovereignty. This image blurred Bianca's reality, shifting her focus back to the humanity of the momentous event living beyond ordinary discovery, a sliver of nature tethering itself to her life's orchestration. She felt the world constrict under the weight of untamed promises and the pull of destinies unspun. Bianca had crossed the bridge into Luca Romano's world, leaving behind the relics of her unspectacular existence, leaped from mundane to mysterious, marked by layers of depth discovered within an impressionistic canvas of rust, charisma, and menace. The market breathed fresh with life, stalls crammed with vivid produce and warm, crusty bread, the cacophony of vendors' banner alive with the day's business. Heads of garlic swayed gently from weathered frames, and the air hummed with the scent of zestful lemons and spiced olive oil. Bianca walked alongside Luca, their causal strides merging with lively townsfolk, her curiosity nipping at possibilities obscured by fate's veil. Here among townsfolk, the outlines of rumors twisted freely, tales of how Bianca, the demure barista, danced upon the brink of the Mafia's underworld, fluttering alongside its unofficial king. Eyes met over artisan cheese wheels and shared moments over sun-dried tomatoes, each interaction an unspoken prophecy of Bianca's identity. The once invisible became vivid as perception skated vibrant lines across public view. Luca played his role without visible burden, his movements mellow, resonating control, like a percussion of majesty tempered by the benevolent sun. Bianca tried to steady herself within this tableau, balancing the morality of simple governance with the complexities unfurling at her feet, tugging the fabric of her time-worn identity. "Does this feel wrong to you?" Bianca pondered out loud, her voice dipped in external strangeness. She turned towards Luca, the sun bronzing the sharp curve of his profile. "No," he replied softly, his gaze canvassing the scene as if measuring both exposure and secrecy. "Life is simply asking another question." Each shared step molded the routes through which Bianca's world expanded, landscapes cluttered with insistent revelation. The weight of her decision pressed, its anchor found within the calm before a storm she could only name in whispers. Later, beneath glinting stars, they roamed the crestline of stone-paved relics hidden by the cloak of nightfall as they wound towards an ancient edifice buried in ivy. Beyond this tourniquet of past and present, the facade opened into a neglected courtyard, roses surging with fragrant crimson decadence. Here, Luca stopped at the statue of a maiden, its aged lines kissed by moonbeam silver. "Why here?" Bianca marveled aloud, her curiosity framed by echoes deafened within the wind. Luca turned slightly, his gaze quietly assessing their surroundings before murmuring, "Every world requires anchor points, places where time stands still and we face ourselves." Bianca nodded, absorbing his truth, fusing within her the solitude emanating from stone history and human desire. Time flitted into dark constellations until dawn's tendrils rose over the horizon, harbinger of a movie they both braced for. With reluctance, Bianca and Luca returned to the world tangled with interference, the louder hum of market unwoven by silence's fissure as they intertwined amidst watchful scrutiny and hidden whispers. Navigating through the throngs, they appeared composed, calm before a figurative sea of eyes alight with curiosity and inquisition, relentless in their fascination with Bianca's newfound dynamism. "I once swore no ordinary soul would steer my ship," Luca expressed, the words infused with caution tinged by respect, addressing the tension introduced by their bond with a dusty reverence. Unerring attention weighed upon Bianca as Luca's words settled upon her ears. Bearing the mantle of intertwined fates recalled memories of that night, blazing with unforeseen courage. Minutes shifted into hours, etching the tapestry of connection shared between moments of unexpected revelation. Each pause carried imprints of time warp and weft woven strikingly into inevitability. Attention flowed freely in their interactions, saturating the corners of her awareness like ink deepening over watercolor. Yet Bianca realized she was navigating an ocean, nuanced by enchantment rather than banality. Returning once more to Luca's side, Bianca found herself dancing on the precipice between public acceptance and sly condemnation, a tension-tuned balance imbued within her soul. The slow burn of identities ensconced around them led Bianca to a path leading her home. Nothing sullied, only enriched by daylight uncertainty, deep within the effervescent cadence of life. Bianca murmured a soft farewell at Luca's insistence she rest, his gesture bearing respect shared between two who found transient solace in twilight's pact. Ascending stairs with feet weighted by potential, Bianca entered her sanctuary. But no sooner had she crossed the threshold than she noticed the envelope wedged beneath her door. Its paper bore elegance, simplicity, catching the eye with sweeps and curves suggestive of forgotten languages. Inside, only a message scribed in jet ink greeted her. Trust alone leads to answers beyond imagining. Bianca stood caught, swept sideways by the enigma encased within words, an omen both subtle and menacing. The lengths of shadows unraveled, tracing unseen covenants that demanded discovery. Here, alone yet not, she confronted the truth that always follows secrets kept in words that waited. Suddenly, a siren's wail reverberated across stone, startling birds to flight as the night bore witness to a new echo spreading into the night. The sound of a violin teetering between melancholy and madness filled the air. Bianca's steps faltered as she peered into the performer's corner, where a cloaked figure drew haunting melodies from strings that whispered old Sicilian laments and new unspoken prophecies. The notes wrapped around her heart, urging its pace to slow, ensnaring her in a tapestry woven from fire and shadows, love and peril. The late afternoon sun trickled like molten gold through the canopy of the marketplace, bathing everything in an ethereal glow, now tinged with an urgency beyond its warm hues. Bianca lingered at the market stalls with her customary discretion, invisible but for the inner turmoil that burned relentlessly beneath her calm visage. She swept a strand of hair behind her ear absent-mindedly, the familiarity of the gesture at odds with the unfamiliarity of her presence beside Luca. Together they walked a path lined with eyeing strangers and whispered rumors, threads of her life now woven irrevocably with his. "Stay close," Luca murmured, his voice laced with intent as rich and unfathomable as the ancient stories these streets housed. Bianca nodded, a silent acknowledgement that rested uneasily amidst her sense of the unreal. How quickly she found herself swept from her life's quiet pages and thrust into this intricate narrative of alliance and suspicion. But there was no time to dwell. A message had arrived that morning, slipped through the chiseled cracks of the old cafe's door, paper grizzled, yet words scrawled with the precision of a master calligrapher. Presence is your greatest weapon and your greatest shield. Be ready. The implications were vast, and Bianca's mind swirled with fantasies of what was to come. She could feel the burn of gazes upon her, like chains slipped softly but bindingly across her bare shoulders. A voice broke through her reverie, cutting with the clarity of a clear bell. "Bianca!" Luca's tone was low but crisp, sharp as a knife's edge. She snapped back to presence, eyes locking onto his. "Yes, I'm ready." They turned down a narrow alley shadowed by time-worn stone and draped with ivy. It was a passage she might once have traversed with muted curiosity at its artistry. Now it felt like a portal to the unknown. Each stone step an echo leading to revelations hidden behind steel and shadow. Arriving at a doorway marked only by a stippled brass plaque, Luca paused before it, his palm resting briefly against the oak grain in silent communion. "Beyond this," he began, turning his gaze toward her, "lies the truth of our entanglement." Bianca inhaled deeply, her chest tight with expectancy and an ounce of trepidation. The air smelled of rain-kissed earth and faint eucalyptus, grounding her in senses she clung to amidst uncertainty. With practiced ease, Luca pushed open the door to reveal an unexpectedly opulent chamber. Crystal chandeliers cast a soft, encompassing glow, and marbled floors whispered stories of opulence and power. Tension rippled through the room as heads turned their way. Men and women sat across long tables, draped in fabrics that spoke of wealth and influence. Their expressions ranged from curiosity to unabashed scrutiny, a council judging with silent verdicts. Bianca resisted the instinct to shy away, channeling instead the strength that had propelled her through flames and thrown her life into uncharted water. "Make your move," a voice called from the far end, an olive-smooth timbre masked in mirth yet laced with menace. The room quieted, waiting. Luca's hand was feather-light on the small of her back, a fixed point in the swirling vortex of expectations. He led her forward until they stood before a figure whose presence seemed to command the very air around them. "This," Luca announced with a composure that rivaled the stillness of the seabed, "is Bianca Rossi, my intended, the harbinger of new eras." A murmur ran through the assembly, thrilling like electricity in the air. Bianca felt it shimmer through her, neither challenging nor acclaiming her place, but waiting. Her silence was an echo, loud yet meaningful, until finally her voice broke free. "I am here," she declared, strong yet unexpectedly gentle. There was a stillness, fragile, pulsing with the gravity of choices simmering beneath the surface tension. But within this silence, Bianca realized something profound. This room, its tension and history, awaited her choice as much as she awaited its judgment. "Would they ask this of you?" an elder asked, a woman whose hair shimmered silver. "She asked herself," Luca countered smoothly, flanking Bianca with a measured stare. The assembly shifted, realigning themselves against this statement, tangible as a whispered conspiracy. "Actions speak louder than oaths unsworn," the elder noted, softly yet with a firmness time had distilled. Her eyes fixed upon Bianca, the weight of the world measured through her unwavering gaze. From her pocket, Bianca withdrew the very card Luca had once offered her, its edge softened by her constant touch. Raising it, she locked eyes with the woman, and subsequently with each member of this silent jury. "This," Bianca began, "symbolizes choice, the kind that defined the path leading us here." Though the card was seemingly insignificant, a slither of embossed paper, its representation drilled deeply into the collective consciousness surrounding them. A fire chooses what it consumes, but the heart determines how it shapes afterward. "Are we not all markers of what we burn to create?" Bianca's words stitched invisible threads through the room, weaving a challenge dappled with its light. There was a pause, illuminated by the holding of breaths, a collective suspension before the drop. "Very well," the elder replied, and her words cascaded calm amidst this quiet storm. The decision was sealed not by proclamations but understanding. Sense that words were remembered not for their length, but for the place they heralded on the current of change. A subtle nod from Luca confirmed their departure, a tether between acts not yet prominent but pervasively threaded into the next chapter. As they stepped outside, cool air embraced them, a jarring relief from the chamber's intensity. Yet Bianca knew intrinsically this was only the beginning of an unnamed journey. "It grows darker still," Luca commented, casting his gaze to the framing sky, knowing all paths now intertwined more tightly than ever. Instead of fear, Bianca felt a resilient calm, the thrill of uncharted potential calling with a voice only she could hear. "When will we discover what lies beyond?" she asked, her voice a mere whisper. "The night brings revelations." "We'll see," Luca returned, a vague promise colored by shimmers of intent. And somewhere within, the echoes of the violin broke free once more, playing on, a haunting prelude. In the distance, a stark glimmer caught Bianca's eye. It was unmistakable, but its significance blurred, casting her future into shadows. Bianca's heart paused anew, echoing the rhythm as words slipped from Luca's lips, merging with the evening breeze. "It's time." Bianca watched the blazing Sicilian sun transform the skyline into an ornate silhouette. "Burn it to the ground," she heard Luca instruct, his voice slicing the twilight with indisputable authority. The air scorched her lungs with the scent of impending change, small embers crackling into mighty flames. Bianca, now accustomed to the swirl of power dynamics and unspoken deals, stood at the threshold of the monumental moment, her unassuming presence etched with newfound determination. She stood, arms hugged across her chest, under the same rusted archway she had braved before, immersed now not in fear but in fascination. Her sweater felt lighter, as if shedding the weight of past expectations. As the men moved with synchronized precision, laying waste to Luca's orders, she felt a pang of contradiction, a quiet world colliding ferociously with one of storms and secrets. The night's chill whispered its way across the landscape, an insidious warning wrapped in nature's quietude. Bianca was no longer the cafe's ghostly barista, but something different, something reborn. Underestimated by society, yet within this realm, she found a peculiar kind of respect elevating, yet starkly precarious. In the distance, under an aged olive tree, Luca's figure remained a distinct shadow against the horizon. He watched with a blend of pride and unreadability, a man whose bonds she had chosen to accept, willingly or otherwise. Bianca, he beckoned, his voice a soft undercurrent in the cacophony surrounding them. I'm here, she called back, the wind carrying her voice like a reluctant promise. She traversed the uneven cobblestone path, each step echoing with decisions that would shape breathtaking new narratives. As she reached him, the night's symphony seemed to swell, wrapping them in a cocoon of action and consequence. Are you overwhelmed? Luca asked, his gaze penetrating yet somehow gentle, examining this strange alignment of their lives. I'm learning, Bianca replied, a simple truth, a profound statement. The words were accompanied by the scent of burning wood, twigs snapping underfoot like echoes of past uncertainties breaking under realization. But reality remained relentless. Drawn into the deep end of shadows and whispers, she felt the weight of eyes tracing her every decision, every reveal. She was a spectacle, yet somehow intrinsic to the tapestry being woven. In a moment engineered for confrontation, emerged a distinct figure from the shadows, a man whose presence rippled with stories untold. Marzio, known for his formidable influence, approached with the air of one who expected the world to realign around him. A captive and a queen, Marzio announced, his voice deepened by mischief and something else, something like admiration. What brings you here between two destinies? Bianca hesitated momentarily. The blend of cool night air and warm ash sent a shiver yet emboldened her. A choice, she declared plainly, finding strength in the grounding truth, in the clear understanding that we can redefine what we claim. Marzio's eyes bore into hers, searching, unbowed by her resolution. And do you envision shared thrones, or is there something you craft alone? The air between them thickened, a cloth woven of challenges and opportunities. Bianca held her ground, inspired by unyielding threads of self-awareness and tenacity. We forge whatever destiny we dare, she answered, a whisper laden with conviction. A smirk played on Marzio's lips, an acknowledgement of the spirit he hadn't anticipated. Then forge well, he concluded, stepping back, leaving gravity moments lessened by possibilities. The moment was punctuated by bursts of flame licking higher into the sky, trailing sparks like stars lost on earth. Luca's gaze met Bianca's, and in that understanding look, a communion of trust and reciprocity was unearthed, buried beneath complexities. The climax of their encounter ceased not in spoken words, but in the shared silence of two paths conjoined under a mantle of resolve. Beneath the canopy of destiny's design, Bianca knew the seeds of her rebirth had been sown amidst ambers. She felt a serene, though temporary, harmony as the tumult of concerns softened under companionship. The undeniable challenge lay not in escape, but in permanence, through choices that translated into unarranged futures. From the hem of awareness, she saw Luca's familiar gesture, a quick, encompassing glance, assessing not the destruction, but what rose from it. Time, he said, the singular syllable wrapping around them both with tangible anticipation. Against the horizon, a single sudden streak of fireworks interrupted the night sky, a burst of color speaking what words could not convey. Bianca breathed deeply, the rush of motion unpooling from doubt and bursting into revelations yet born. It was the beginning anew widen, the once indistinct shadows pacing forward with clarity, uncertainty replaced by vivid determination, night seduced by vividness in their wake. Around them the night throbbed with unspent energy, portraying an enigmatic chorus unfathomably close to the ebb of miracles. Light trailed across Bianca's vision as an unexpected reflection, A mirrored image balanced on a narrow ledge. In that moment, silence laced the air as her heart aligned with unforeseen clarity. It was not the ending. With measuring steps back from the blaze, Luca extended a gesture of quiet promise. Eventually, he articulated with an edge of intrigue, "We'll glimpse the world reborn." Bianca turned and smiled, her thoughts blending with the fading sound of crackling fire, a symbol of past reconciled and future uncharted. Her curiosity felt kindled anew, and her voice air-whispered across the gap of experience. "I think," she said, feeling courage burgeon, "this is ours to claim." Above them, the sky surrendered to the indigo hue, a prelude to night's ascendancy, silhouetting their figures upon a precipice of tomorrow. In this moment suspended, a distant bird cry shimmered through the silence, lending an omen unbound by dawn's persistence. Then met with consumed reflections, a single stark realization unfurled. In their path ahead hovered a shadow. It lingered, stitched into the fabric of their intertwining fates. Bianca stepped into the dawn light, her breath catching a halt as she surveyed the unexpected spectacle sprawling before her. The city awakened to Luca's new reality, a vision crafted from the ashes still whispering songs of renewal into the crisp morning air. Streets once tangled in murk now shimmered with the newness of freshly cast intentions. The night's smoldering ruins had given way to construction teams, bustling like ants in orchestrated chaos. Dust danced with mist, conjuring patterns against the skyline, while the staccato of hammers lent a rhythmic heartbeat to the unfolding day. Bianca Rossi stood, undistinguished no longer, amidst this pregnant evolution of figure fraught with complexities intertwining silently beneath her composed demeanor. Against the backdrop of gesturing cranes and arcing sparks, she embodied the uncanny calm that whispers at the end of storms. Invisible to the bustling workers who labored around her, each of her unhurried steps seemed weighted with purpose, not of bricks and mortar, but of choices lingering just beyond the imagined future. An oversized scarf muddled around her throat consumed the morning breeze and warmth, her hands nestled within its folds like restless conduits of the nerves running beneath. The air carried the scent of wet clay and cooling metal, tangible echoes of creation and destruction entwined. As Bianca moved through Luca's realm, a living mosaic of intent and pragmatism, her quiet poise collected more than the passing glances of laborers, their admiration braided with respect. "Miss Rossi," a foreman greeted with a nun, words soaked in Sicilian melody. "Building a kingdom takes time, but the vision, it starts with heart." Bianca smiled, lips curving unbidden at the ease with which this new identity graced her, unassuming yet central. "A heart worth nurturing," she replied, the timbre of her voice a spell recasting ordinary moments into significance. Yet, hidden beneath the newly laid foundations, Luca's objectives surged like an undercurrent, pulling Bianca further into unexpected tides. Challenges subtly punctuated the progress, discreet inquiries, inscrutable motives, the relentless machinations of men discerning unseen pathways. Whispers trailed the morning fog, muffled truths obscured in laborers' subtext. Bianca found herself balancing on the knife edge between recognized roles as gazes settled upon her with an intensity she had slowly come to accept. By midday, the once muted sun began to glower through a veil of gathering clouds, painting the sight in shadows. The air thickened, charged with anticipation of a celestial sequel, as Bianca rounded a corner, revealing a familiar figure amidst the architectural rebirth. "Marzio," she acknowledged, the name an invocation as much as it was a greeting in its barbed eloquence. The man's eyes smoldered with the heat of countless calculations. His presence marked a pivot, a known entity in the realm of mysteries, showing just a hint of the chaos simmering beneath. "You oversee wonders, Bianca," Marzio commended, his voice yet a mysterious dance. "Indeed, you found a throne of your own." His observation nestled within Bianca's awareness, weaving a new layer atop her burgeoning identity. She remained firm, redrawing boundaries interlaced with delicacy. "Yes, but a throne's worth is measured not by its weight but by its balance," Bianca returned confidently, her answer balanced on the cusp of diplomacy and wisdom. Marzio chuckled, a genuine sound yet edged with warning. "Beware, dear Bianca," he whispered conspiratorially. "The arena you've chosen doesn't forgive naivety." Acknowledging the gravity of shadows he alluded to, Bianca mirrored his enigmatic smile with silent acknowledgement. Her heart had already crossed into realms of reality, where truth and danger walked hand in hand disguised as destiny's sentinels. As noon unfolded into the web complexity of afternoon, Bianca found herself accompanying Luca within the skeletal outlines of what would soon rise into their vision, a sparkling tower atop once fallow grounds. Here, undertones blended seamlessly with construction's cadences, tempering both steel and resolve. Bianca observed Luca's gestures, deftly woven remedies to unseen clashes, guiding, marking paths through hardship's deceptive simplicity. "Tell me," Bianca queried as they paused amidst the rough framework, voices merging with the drowsy hum around them. "Why choose this chaos to birth ingenuity?" Luca leaned against an upright beam, confidence wrapped vividly around his words. "It's in chaos where creation finds its true form and clarity blossoms through resilience." A swell of awe percolated through Bianca, lulled by the awareness of Luca's dual existence, a vastness wrapped in the common currency of ambition and the tender realization of modernity entwined with tradition. Morning surrendered to the twilight's russet expanse, the skies bleeding into hues of indigo and vermilion as Bianca and Luca shared perspectives, glancing westward across the mosaic patchwork of land that connected intent with dreams. "Bianca," Luca said softly, uttering something close to reverence, "together we trace destinies etched in clay, stone, and breath." The sun dipped below the Tuscan outlines. Stars greeted fresh constellations, and reflection took precedence over speech. As evening draped her velvet darkness, thoughts unraveled like threads spinning anew. Bianca absorbed the quiet moments, casting visionaries' glances toward blossoming narratives. A shadow shifted beyond peripheral awareness, a tangible omen slipped between frames, a murmured insinuation of what yet lingered beneath hidden paths. "What lies beneath?" Bianca pondered softly, an echo that curled among the lull of distant waves, hinting at truths awaiting resurrection. Bianca froze, her hand clasping the doorknob, an unexpected shiver playing across her skin. It was as though the air around her held its breath, expectant, charged with an invisible tension ready to break. "You have to decide now," came the voice she had never anticipated to hear again, her estranged father's. Every breath filled Bianca with the scent of the city's grit mingling with the ocean's salt, grounding her in a reality that had twisted and turned in unimaginable ways. She was no longer the indifferent barista. She had become a part of Luca Romano's intricate world, woven into the very fabric of his grand design. Quiet resilience had always been her strength, an unassuming presence in life's bustling backwaters. But now confidence ebbed beneath the surface, a taut thread linking the life's ordinariness she once knew with the unforeseen responsibilities that lay ahead. Walking through the narrow streets of Luca's kingdom, Bianca carried an innate awareness of her surroundings. She did not simply exist in this world. She was now an active particle moving within its ecosystem, stringing together both mundane and monumental tasks under Luca's watchful eyes. This calm belied the whirlwind swirling in her mind since the previous night, a gathering of important families, allies, and adversaries within Luca's empire had reshaped alliances. Negotiations whispered beneath veiled civility, the kind that altered landscapes with silent intensity. As she moved through this new world, the shadows of Luca's life crept in to test her mettle. Whispers trailed her every move, laden with curiosity, speculation, and sometimes blatant distrust. Somehow her very presence had turned into a statement, a silent force amid the masculine dialogues of power. "Did you think you could walk through this unchanged, Bianca?" Marzio's question from 6 hours earlier rang within her thoughts, marinating in the complexity of her reality. While Luca drove the impossible calculus of his ambitions, Bianca found herself a rogue variable that every equation seemed to consider, intentionally or not. In her mind, she wrestled with the notion that acceptance here was conditional, constantly tested by the delicacy of her choices. As strong as she appeared, vulnerability glimmered within her, real, flickering between phases of confidence, almost unwilling to be fully extinguished. Bouquet of purposes, thorns now pressed against her, awakening sensitivity previously shrouded in simplicity. She walked into a room full of eager eyes, their intentions buried beneath the guise of polite smiles as they gestured her forward. These were the unsaid whose influence weaved this life. Their words blend seamlessly into the day's structure, a social architecture shaped by whispers and intent nods. Bianca had to suppress a reflexive urge to retreat into old habits, to fade quietly into the soft wallpaper of existence. Instead, she met each gaze with assured grace, simply because insistence demanded she play the part cast before her. It wasn't a crown she wore, but the scrutiny was tangible, a gilded illusion she bore with every footstep toward Luca. Because somewhere in this torn tapestry of freedom and obligation lay a kernel of truth she was yet to unravel. Arrangements can shift the ground beneath, Luca had told her once, yet those who move with the earth remain unwavering. Bianca pondered those words, clutching a slip of paper as she descended into what seemed an abyss of gauntlet, composed not of clear adversaries, but ripple effects unseen. This written testament was one of the many quirks that marked her transformations, an alliance elaborated in ink rather than blood, as traditional as it was avant-garde. Each word was woven into threads of loyalty, heavy with implications and expectations she alone carried silently. The paper mocked her with a simplicity that bore weight without remorse. Task instructions were presented ambiguously, yet with undeniable precision, a game initiated unbeknownst in her acceptance. He understood what this entailed, the provocation of power, mercurial as a Sicilian thunderstorm, which could gift clarity or destruction based on its whims. As dusk descended, Bianca stood amid a garden cultivated from ruins, a symbol of what she was being asked to create: beauty from chaos, unity from disparity. The air was rich with the scent of blooming citrus and evening primrose, the gentle frailness anchoring her resolve. And there, seated on an intricately carved stone bench, was the man she'd once refused to call father, a figure she'd spent many years extricating from her life. "Child," he began, untangling the distance from past grievances, "you stand at a crossroads that shapes more than destiny." Bianca breathed in deeply, considering the choice that lay before her. A reconciliation forged amid Luca's world where personal and political interwove in delicate patterns. Would this alliance demand a cost beyond what was visible? Her heart pounded with sovereignty, every beat reiterating that something intrinsic had traversed miles to claim its name. Leaning into the stillness between them, she answered not with words but by the tilt of her head, a silent punctuating nod to destiny's dare. Here, at this juncture, her mind began tracing horizons yet unseen. She understood intrinsically that no action existed within vacuums, each an echo evolving through histories, futures, and the mingling moments suspended among them. Carried by the gentlest of breezes, the garden's symphony enshrined her decision. The painless past dissolved against the solidity of her forward momentum. Her father's gaze softened as he rose, crossing the bridges he'd once burned toward a future neither imagined nor defined. "Bianca," he said, voice gravelly from shadowed memories, "you carry the weight well." And unexpectedly, Bianca realized a transformation had indeed unfurled, unrestrained by title, drenched not in power but in poignant resolve. She walked the garden path with her father by her side, the two silhouettes weaving into the narrative landscape as twilight shadowed the path forward. Revisiting old doubts tethered like relics to this newfound clarity, she felt both the astonishment and the awe that so perfectly captured her unspoken promises. A vibrant night sky began its tender descent, smearing twilight with stardust's hopeful embrace. Within her heart, Bianca carried an awareness that the hush of dawn awaited a time when shadows would shift once more. And as they lingered between the light and the dark, she heard her father speak these words shaded with both ambiguity and encouragement: "There is still much to discover." An echo of unsaid agreements pulsated across the dimly lit room, the air brimming with muted expectancy, wrapped in velvet shadows that seemed to cascade over the ornate furniture like night over a restless sea. Bianca turned, her eyes sweeping the room as she absorbed the delicate balance of old-world wood and modern metal gleaming beneath the soft illumination. Each object held a story, much like the whispered tales that had begun to circle around her new place in this tangled web of power and loyalty. It was here that Luca had summoned her, his commands as authoritative as the tide itself, immutable yet quietly persuasive. The letter accompanying the summons bore his familiar calligraphic flourish, Capisci c'è tutto, deve cambiare. Bianca pondered as she absorbed the multi-layered implications wound neatly into the ink's curve, its simplicity contrasting sharp decisions awaiting uncovering. However, this was her evolution, defined not by the brick and stone of their surroundings, but by the resilience she unearthed within. As the family's newest fulcrum, she realized that the word "rombonduramento" distinctly summarized this tense gathering. Breaking of the vow, a Sicilian tradition of confessions disguised as casual gatherings, wherein unmasking opponents determine one's true standing. Revered symbols filled the air, an ominous dartboard of family crest medallions, tales of definitive supremacy woven into flickered gasps of recognition. Postures shifted among guests, performances quietly articulating their dexterity in dealings where interactions bristled with unspoken pacts. Bianca traversed this domain like a shadow guided by candlelight, awe-inspired, underestimated by many yet absorbing every nuance. Bianca's demure nature was quietly dynamic here, where the clink of glasses mingled with forlorn notes of a distant lute, serenading quintessential ceremony, driven woes as vivid yet subtly intricate as Luca's operatic life. Surrounded by perceptive gazes, she let go of concerns, focusing instead on sporadic sensory associations, the whiff of aged whiskey, the rich texture of silken ties and handkerchiefs infused with grand intentions. Before long, Bianca caught Luca's signaled request to approach the gesture as compelling as it was inexorable, compelling as gravity. The liaison sat down, her pale fingers toying with the edge of a heavy linen napkin like paper boats against unseen tides. What lies before you ought to capture more than attention, cara Bianca. Luca's voice held a familiar weight sheltered by palatable fascination, so intrinsic to its deliverance. She allowed his question to unfold quietly, embracing uncharted narratives under the moon's beckoning. A family totem, its golden hues arresting beneath dimmed lights, lay before her within its museum-like sanctuary. Digitally stored truths whispered personal legacies, words left trailing if only barely remembered. I'm aware, Bianca offered easily. Her eyes followed Luca's calculating gaze, his connection an ethereal wine spun from vintage recognition that belied their present. Their dialogue threaded fresh fates around terracotta, edges planted with familial sensations, where gambled reverence found grounding strength amidst whispering hardwood. And then sudden movement caught her peripheral awareness. An unfamiliar voice sidled into consciousness as Marzio's distinct tenor interwove with laughter said of them, bearing phonetic claws beneath congeniality. His words, slinking between curiosity refreshed with time's irreverence, exposed a familiarity with danger, a familiar tug nipping at their retold memories. Is your role merely as defined, or are there nuances we anticipate, Miss Rossi? Marzio challenged, betraying where within he chased more than idle conversation. The room shifted, reflective lines capturing meaning as Bianca posted a soft smile curving in readiness, like molest of dark silk. A story is sculpted from varied perspectives, she returned, crafting an answer subtly replete, carving intrigue from expected forms. Marzio chuckled, sound much like brushed velvet over cool stone, submitting an unspoken arrangement only decipherable by a keen observer. At that moment, Bianca discerned a shared vision taking form, solidifying fact from each passing iteration, unraveling words between lukewarm glasses of deep ruby wines. The evening matured with delicate tension, layered with shared histories of oppressively familiar saints framed above silent gateways. Even Luca's presence ignited a clandestine closeness, shared only amid unmarked adversaries, of fiction, translating sharper moments of recognition into palatable outcomes. Minutes struck forward, strummed within slippers quiet against heralding echoes, and hinted over tales spun quietly beneath dining table secrecy. Bianca understood the language spoken was often best left unheard, an intricate dialogue speculating across house lines, colliding endlessly to new heights unknown. Soon she felt Luca's trust manifested, an intangible valuation distinct from earthly weight, a silhouette seeking even in darkened grayscale made its presence known, awaiting resolution. With implicit confidence found against equipped silence, Bianca turned once more to her challenge's epigraph, resting firmly between reflection and intent, subdued yet ready. Each movement echoed longer within present mirages, nailed politely by knowing observations disguised as family ties, tenderly surmounting revolving portraits of laughter among storm-bound eyes. Conversations grew with dusk as effervescent shadows nudged soft color from room tableaus, outlining rather than establishing boundaries between those who understood them. In the hushed silence, reflections once unshakable flourished again, seeking truths eternally sheltered by tangible succession. The grand clock's sonorous chime governed escaping narratives through progressing night, reminding Bianca that you hold both fortunes and fires within palms, clasped across present testimony. Luca's fingers danced over her spine as history's vibrant echoes hovered above. They conveyed a presence in investigation, felt most calmly where spoken agreements wove poignantly full. Guests molded hospitality from whispered metaphors. Memories spun into between palimpsest emblems. Thus meshed within family chronicles, braided from silk bichrome gems and parched collective silence, fundamentals flourished. For it was beneath stained glass chronicles of roots and fruit unknown, embedded confidence found permanent refuge. Mesmerized, Bianca stared gently across twilight-stained velvet. Luca, across, appeared sober unmoored despite familiarity spun tightly into comprehension. Celebra l'ora, declares elder archetype, sounding wisdom sprouted from Hadal depths of interpretation. Words, flyers drifting to greet moments poised at a resolution. I suppose, Bianca reflected pensively, sensing room's changed pause tighten. The silence sustained its fray upon seeking calm yet unyielding. We dream endlessly within present tales, Luca remarked with subtextric philosophy, whose language inspired synthesis. Crossing sunlight with half-side symmetry, Bianca retreated into reflections, where profound distinctions inevitably wore air's solemnity as armor. One verse they shared humming in soft resonance, familiar restlessness enveloped life's conquest. At that tantalizing zenith an echo reignited resolve, retreat arriving with expected suddenness. Is this where we acknowledge irresistible forge? Bianca questioned. As midnight met dawn's silhouette, a somber shadow slipped beneath frame daunting. Only if there's clarity within darkness array, mused Luca, eluding various motifs lingered held within narrative cadence. Thus began mystic start embarking mutual exchange, a bold promise dictated by simplicity. Guiding moment shivering, yet exquisite, the motif unresolved predicted unforeknown journey. The flame glows quietly brighter beyond window pane's threshold, revealing drawn reflection alongside Lucian, Shilohete allure, cast by familiarity woven from dusk's fleeting dance. Illuminated delicate chiaroscuro silhouette, flame's memory, embracing the night's baptism hangover. Embracing destiny, one instrument whispers amid beckoning shadows. From within late night's anthology, the visage proclaims existence in unity of ideas inscribed softly, leaving their shared reflection bestowed gently between certain finales, revealing known acts beyond Tether's play. A single stark scream clashed with dawn's silence, ricocheting off the frescoes and settling into a nervous hush. Bianca threw open the doors to the balcony, her breath matching the city's pulse beneath her feet, which trembled with the urgent revelation of betrayals yet unnamed. From this zenith point, Palermo sprawled below her a maze of cryptic shadows and felt heartbeat, an orchestration connecting lives bound in secrecy and ambition. Today was unlike any other, marked by the calendar as the day of consolidation, the day she would weave together her role in this grand tapestry initiated by her unforeseen acquaintance with Luca Romano. Bianca, poised like a tightly wound coil, faced what was perhaps her ultimate challenge. Around her, the villa buzzed with lively, purposeful strides, servants attending invisibly to the practicalities of empire building. The scent of fresh brioche, mingled with the bitter edge of dark roast coffee, meandered past her nose, sensory touchstone against so much change. Bianca's thoughts returned to the whispered meeting from the night before, where advice and provocations played like chess. Deadly serious, yet intoxicatingly addictive. Her father's grave voice weighed heavy. Choose and choose wisely, Bianca. Loyalties here can shift quicker than the tides. She was far removed from the sinews of anonymity that once cradled her mundane existence as a barista, yet she carried those pastel remnants close, a talisman against the tempest on her shoulders now. Stepping back inside, where light bounced on the polished marble floor, she adjusted subtly fitting apparel that signaled her newfound status. She missed the soft concealment of oversized sweaters, of being unseen in a world perpetually exhaling its chaos. Now, each glance from Luca, each subtle nod from allies or adversaries, pressed on her evolution. There was a knock at the door, a gentle reminder of time's incessant march. Luca entered without ceremony, tall and resolute, his presence a reminder of tabernacles explored and kingdoms at stake. His gaze flicked over her with assessing clarity. "Are you ready, Bianca?" His voice smoothed over the tension like the softest leather, its resonance burying itself into her consciousness. "I am," she replied, with a courage drawn from the last reserves of uncertainty replaced by burgeoning resolve. He held out his hand, a shared overture between their twin destinies, where each held a piece of the narrative. Every step through the villa with Luca felt choreographed by some unseen composer, each moment heavy with past echoes and future allegiances forming beneath unstated promises. Reaching the grand hall adorned with chandeliers that glittered like captured starlight, she sensed the vibrancy of Sicilian families converge there. The air pulsed thick with politics and pausing breaths, as if the room held its collective anticipation aloft. In the middle of it all stood Marzio, leaning casually with the poise of a panther, his eyes flicking with mischief and something akin to admiration. He approached Bianca with that fluidity endemic to those who defy gravity's rule. "Today marks a momentous gamble," he began, offering her a smile that spoke of shared secrets and untold facets of exchange. "I hope you've placed your bets wisely." "Betting is easy," Bianca returned, her eyes meeting his without flinching. "Understanding stakes and moving accordingly takes insight." The game within words circled around them, electric and enticing, before Marzio lifted a glass in salute and acknowledgement of fortitude shared in the eye of approaching storms. The gathering soon unraveled into structured discussions, agendas illuminating intricate plays of power entwined. Bianca felt Luca's guiding presence beside Hera Phalanx against the abrasion of resistant alliances and probing whispers. Just then, the doors at the far end crashed open, a rush of cold air expanding into the fragrant warmth, carrying with it the accusation that lay in the balance. The sudden silence was pierced only by a single command: "Assemble." Bianca took in the arrival of Anna, a pivotal player in this chess set, with her dark hair swept back like an assertion, her presence causing ripples in otherwise calm waters. "Today's ceremony betrays suspicion," Anna declared, her voice rolling across the chamber as chess pieces casually toppled before her words. Luca's reaction was poised, a man aware of every varying chord of this symphony yet playing his own melody, counterpointed by Bianca's steady support. In this moment, Bianca realized the time for careful observation had ended. She felt the sudden unfolding of layered truths within her. With deliberation, she extended her influence into the conversation, assessing nuances with the precision she had once reserved for a perfect crema. As the debate churned beneath grand arches, Bianca isolated the words that flowed around her like the aria of an expansive opera, noting each change in rhythm and cadence. Suddenly, her mind settled on a realization previously unconsidered, yet profoundly simple: the essence of a truth long concealed amongst Byzantine deception. "Look to the past," she declared, her voice projecting with unexpected clarity. "It informs more than just what is written, it offers context for what's concealed. Not everything lost is lost forever." Her words brought pause, circulating through the room like whispered revelations amidst a confessional silence. Anna, sensing change, refocused, an expression of grudging respect playing across her features. "So it seems you're ready to test my understanding," she acknowledged, her tone colored with reluctant admiration. Here, Bianca's journey felt legitimated by mere resonance within this extended family narrative, the discovery of meaning hidden beneath each enunciated promise. As the imploring dialogue wound through its natural crescendo toward conclusion, Bianca's heart harmonized with the undercurrent of voices, a sensory orchestra enhancing her own sparking reinvention. Luca leaned in closer, his words a private exchange filled with hope. "You've shed the last veil of doubt, Bianca," he whispered, emphasizing each softened syllable. And with Luca's backing and confidence knitted into her every fiber, Bianca's place within this drama assumed equilibrium, an entity poised on the brink of its own mythos. Just as assured discovery bathed the room, a sudden shadow flickered at the corner, an indecipherable figure retreating from the peripheral memory. Bianca's gaze narrowed, curiosity not yet satiated. "Sometimes the extraordinary hides in plain sight," she murmured, the puzzle of night and dawn blending into a final cliched embrace. The shadow whispered its own continuation, a vow, yet to be fulfilled, as Bianca continued to unthread the fiction from her own burgeoning reality, knowing that this moment was only another beginning.